It's no secret that some of the biggest winners from open source software are huge companies that aren't putting back their fair share of money. Think about things like Elasticsearch that blew up on AWS and never saw any money as a result of that. This is weirdly common, and there's a lot of companies using a lot of open source software that just don't pay back. And that's why I'm really excited about a new initiative kickstarted by Sentry called the Open Source Pledge, trying its hardest to push companies to help fund the open source that they're all building on top of. This is a really awesome project, and I can't wait to tell you more about it. But first, I have to get paid. So let's hear a quick word from today's sponsor. Hopefully you've heard about Bolt by now. If you haven't, it's the new AI code tool built by StackBlitz. Yeah, like the IDE and the browser guys. It's really, really cool. Unlike the other similar tools, they support pretty much every framework out of the box. So I can just click Nuxt here, the Vue framework I'm very well known for using. It will spin up a project, run the npm install, do everything in the browser, but you can still edit the code, remember. So if you want to sit in here and play around, you can. But what if I don't want to? What if I want them to? Easy. Theme the home page so it looks like the React documentation. Now it's going to do that. We can hop back to the code tab and see the actual changes it's making as it makes them. It'll guide you through all of it. You can even tell it to install packages. So if you want to have it change logic over to a library that you like, just tell it and it will do it. I've never seen an AI that can run npm installs for you before. That was kind of trippy. It's not just the installs either. This can deploy too. I'll show you in just a sec. And there we are. Nuxt.js, the intuitive Vue framework. That's uncanny. I got that a little too good, a little too quick. But if we want to deploy it, it's pretty easy. Tell the AI, and it'll figure it out for you. You can even see the commands that it's running as it does it. And my face is currently covering it, but if I move that there, you can see open and StackBlitz and deploy are both buttons they have right there too. But now we have it deployed, open the website, and there we are, deployed on Netlify. I can clone it to my account immediately with just one more link. Tell me that's not pretty cool. Thank you to StackBlitz for sponsoring today's video. Go check out bolt.new. Open source pledge. Pay your share. Whether you're a CEO, CFO, CTO, or just a dev, your company surely depends on open source software. It's time to pay the maintainers. Believe it or not, I actually saw this at a bus stop in SF. Like they took over one of the poster ads because Sentry is taking this seriously and SF's the place to do these types of advertisements. It was weird seeing an open source call out like that next to a bench as I was walking around the city, but it is cool to know that they're pushing this for real. It's spending money not just to quickly pay open source devs, but to try and build a culture of paying them more. TLDR, the first step, pay open source maintainers. The minimum to participate is $2,000 per year per dev at your company. So the goal here is to scale the amount of contribution you're making based on how many devs you have. $2,000 per year might sound like a lot, but when you consider many of these devs are making over $200,000 a year, this is a 1% increase, and open source is doing a lot more than a 1% bump in our productivity. This is also way smaller than things like the WordPress 5 for the Future chaos. This is a best faith, contribute some money back based on the fact that you have hundreds of devs that are doing all sorts of stuff. This isn't for random independents to try and throw a bunch of money. This is for big companies that have a ton of developers that aren't contributing jack shit to open source. And the two things they're asking in order for you to be part of the open source pledge is that you do those contributions of $2,000 minimum per year per dev at your company, and that you report this publicly on some form of blog outlining the payments you've made and where they've went. This is a great initiative to get companies who wouldn't exist without the digital public good of open source software to give back. Here are some of the companies that are already complying. Might end up doing this myself because this is really cool. God, now I look at the list, I love all of these companies. These are all really cool. I've had incredible conversations with the Get Butler guys. Laravel, I just filmed a video about. I love what they've been up to lately. Browserbase, I work with closely. They're doing really cool things. Valtown, I've only heard great stuff about. Sentry, obviously, previously was a sponsor. Know them really well. I don't know Antithesis, Astral, or Prefect, or Logfire. I do know the rest. And fucking Emerge Tools is so cool. They're doing deep dive breakdowns of why apps are slow on Twitter, where they break apart the entire bundle to show why it's so big and what's wrong with the app. I've learned so much about native dev stuff through Emerge. It's hard to put into words. Great crew. Check out their stuff for sure. Makes a lot of sense that they would join something like this. I love it. Let's hear a bit more about the motivation of building this. Zieg told the story, of course. If you don't know Zieg, originally the founder of Sentry. He's currently making fun of all of the indie hackers with his Twitter bio. Sentry, 10,000K a month, probably. God damn it, Kramer. Why do you do this? Anyways, here's their blog post that he wrote all about this. Today, we officially launch the Open Source Pledge. The pledge started as an idea some years back. What if we could give back to open source on behalf of every employee at Sentry? He's been talking about this for years. We've had a lot of convos about it. I'm not that surprised. Hype for him, though. We threw around a number of ideas on how we might do that, but none of them seemed like they'd achieve the level of impact that we wanted. We always had two goals: pay maintainers directly and do it sustainably and scale it with our growth. My earliest thought in the space centered around a form of donation matching. The hope was we could take something like GitHub sponsors and match employees' contributions to open source maintainers. That posed a number of challenges. The biggest risk was participation. Not everyone cares about open source, and that's fine. So donation matching breaks down with reduced participation. Instead, we decided to do direct funding, driven by a variety of inputs, like their dependency graph, projects that people voted on, and guidance from engineering leadership. That program is what you've seen from us publicly, running it for 3 consecutive years. Each year, we increased the funding amount based on Sentry's own financial growth. It became such a no-brainer within Sentry's leadership that we've aggressively increased the funding every year, even beyond our original targets. With the success of that, we set off to take this program, codify it, and bring it to other companies to see if we could turn this into a bigger thing. Lead by example. As we started talking about this and thinking about how we might turn it into something bigger with more impact, I was reminded of a number of scenarios that I had previously experienced when speaking with other founders. I regularly speak at a variety of events, many where open source is a key part of the narrative. They're generally filled with venture-backed founders telling their stories of why open source matters to their business, why they believe and invest in it. One thing that was commonly expressed by these folks was the sustainability challenge in the industry. Great, I thought. We have a solution. Not a single one of those founders did anything more than talk about the problem. Sure, maybe they throw a few bucks at one of the big foundations, and they almost certainly fund investments into their own ecosystem, their commercial interests. Unfortunately, they rarely do anything measurable that improves the thing that they claim to care about so deeply. Worse, some of these people, often from the largest tech companies, have a laundry list of excuses for why giving money to people is hard. I've heard so many of those excuses, and I'm happy that they're fighting that directly. So we decided to try and do something about it. That something is the open source pledge. We don't think it's the only solution, nor do we think it's the only way to give back. But we do believe giving cash money to maintainers is an appropriate way to show your thanks, to recognize their hard work and the value that they create for you. Maybe, just maybe, we'll do our small part in encouraging the maintainers to keep putting up with us in the enormous ecosystems that we rely on. This classic, I reference this so often. All modern infra and then some random project that a person in Nebraska has thanklessly been maintaining since 2003. This gets more true every single day. And the goal of this is to make sure this person gets paid at the very, very least, which I like. I think it's a noble goal, and I hope that this ends up becoming popular. So how do you pledge? What does it take? As I mentioned before, it's giving $2,000 per engineer that you employ every year. Sentry, it's truly just 135 engineers. I would have thought it would have been more. But that means that their minimum commitment is $270K this year. Think about that in the context that Sentry generates more than $100 million in recurring revenue. It's a fraction of what we spend in any given calendar month on digital advertising. Then why'd y'all cut me? I understand. Anyways, it's a pretty modest amount in the grand scheme of things, but it's enough to have genuine impact. And second, what's the return on investment that your company is going to get from joining? It's marketing. I mean, it worked. Sentry's not paying me anymore, and I'm giving them a bunch of free advertising right now. Hell, if you're trying to figure out why errors are happening in your app, you should probably be using Sentry. They don't pay me to say that anymore, but they're paying open source, and now I'm saying it, so they won. It works for marketing. It's your brand, it's top of funnel, it's software security, it's free software, it's open source. We see return on investment in 2 major ways: brand marketing and the supply chain. You may care about one more than the other, so choose whichever helps you get over the finish line. From the supply chain angle, you're encouraging maintainers of the software you use to continue to provide support. You're telling them that you value their work, and the contribution is there to encourage them to keep contributing to it. At the very least, you're giving them a big thank you, which sets the tone for the future generations of maintainers. You're thanking them for free software. Both of those improve the efficiency of your research and development investments. From the brand angle, it's what you make of it. If it's a space that you care about, you're putting your money where your mouth is, and your audience will recognize that. Yeah, I will say, if you're not a dev tools company, this is harder to justify, but if you are, easiest thing in the world. You should be doing this. You buy products from brands that you connect with, and if your customers care about open source, you're giving them one more reason to care about you over your competition. You're also putting yourself out there, attracting new eyes to your brand that may not have heard about you before. We don't know yet if the pledge will be successful, but I'm thrilled with the number of people who have decided to support the program, both directly with funds and indirectly with broadcasting and recruiting. Woo! It's me! I especially want to thank the people who have put in the hours to really get this off the ground. Chad Whitaker and Michael Selvage from Sentry, as well as Vlad and Ethan Arrowwood. While Sentry is funding getting the program off the ground, we're hoping it lasts well beyond us and turns into something much more. The industry's in a rocky place these days, and a little bit of effort from the people who can afford it can go a long way. This is a really cool effort. I genuinely am hyped that Sentry's putting their money where their mouth is and trying to make open source more sustainable. How do you feel about this? Are you going to contribute more? Are you going to push for your companies to do it? Or do you think open source is overrated? Let me know in the comments, and until next time, keep maintaining.